Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and also welcome something different today. This is Miss Pauling, TF2's True Protagonist by Skyman Slash. Now, she is a TF2 YouTuber that I've watched for a while, and then I stopped getting recommended her videos, so then she kind of changed up her stuff. Now she has a lot more, video essay type stuff, but, still on TF2 most of the time. All that being said, I like her content, and I decided I wanted to, do a reaction to this one, even though the video is a couple of weeks old. Second, if you weren't aware, after 7 years, the final Team Fortress 2 comic was released. And that was one heck of a Christmas present, to put it nicely. So, if you weren't aware, Team Fortress 2, the game that is responsible for my channel at name and online handle that I use in most places. Nowadays, I believe what people call it is like a hero shooter. But it basically started the genre, and it's been chugging along very nicely for, 17 years now? I mean, okay, so at this point, technically 18. But, its history has been very tumultuous. It hasn't had a major update apart from, cosmetics in a fair number of years. Then there was the whole thing where the game was basically just overrun with aimbots that would play a sniper and just kill you instantly the second they saw you for a while. But then, seemingly during the second Save TF2, or Fix TF2 movement, I should say, Valve did something that basically made it so that the bots have not come back basically at all. There was like a couple of days there where it was just, you could see, people were sharing screenshots from bot hosters' discords of them just crying about, things being taken down and stuff like that. Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. So that was good. Still waiting on the heavy update, if that's ever actually going to be a thing. But on top of all of that, the final TF2 comic, for if you didn't know, on the TF2 website, which there actually is a TF2 website, you can go over to the comic section, and they had comics that were basically, since TF2 was a purely multiplayer game, that were actually just expanding on the lore and the story of the game. And as you can see, there was a major stretch of time between number 6 and number 7. So, at this point, the lore of TF2 is complete, unless, Valve decides to start making a second round of comics, which, given how number 7 ended, I don't entirely see happening. I don't want to spoil anything, that's what the video is going to be about. But, anyways, with all of that, massive preamble out of the way, Skyman's video, about Miss Pauling, with Pauling being the assistant to the announcer, the woman whose voice you hear during the game, during rounds and stuff like that. It's been kind of shown that through the comics that she kind of became the very much, at least in the very last comic, that she was kind of the one holding everything together and the person that was getting the plot moving. God, so very excited for the video. Let's actually get into this. So yeah, of course, as always, original video is linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video will lead to my Let's Play of the day, and let's see what Skyman has to say about the last comic then, shall we? Oh my god, yeah, I swear that day.
Where do I even begin? After nearly 8 agonizing long years, Valve has finally answered one of its many lingering questions. Will we ever get the 7th TF2 comic?
And yes, we did!
I am ecstatic to say the answer to that is yes, and god damn, there's a lot to talk about.
And also, can I just say, something I didn't say before was that this was dropped with no fanfare on, Valve's part. They basically said, hey, the new comic's out, and just, that was it, and then everybody else panicked.
However, instead of me expounding a detailed overview of the 7th comic, I instead want to focus this video around one particular character. Care to take a guess which one? Well, it's
Scout.
If you didn't read the title of this video or you can't recognize this getup, I want to talk about Miss Pauling, and how in the end she was the true protagonist all along.
I'd believe it.
At least in terms of the comics. I would like to make it clear, this video should act like a companion piece to the comics. I would highly advise against watching it if you haven't read the series, as I won't be giving context to absolutely everything.
You hear that? You have 7 comics to read, so, do it. Actually, 8. Yeah, you have 8 comics to read. Do it now. Come back to this video and then, come back to hers as well.
I'm assuming you've at least read these incredible comics.
I have, yes.
So that I can, save time not having to explain stuff like who the hell's Zephaniah Man is. Okay, well, maybe that's a bit of a bad example because he's not really mentioned in the main series until now. Only in the catch-up comic. You get the point. If you somehow haven't read this incredible series of comics, do yourself a favor, leave this video, go read them. They are well worth it.
I already have.
Before we delve into the main thesis of this video, I do want to give a brief summary of who Miss Pauling is and her history within the lore. And I mean brief. For me, I'm not noting every single appearance, or this video will already be way longer than it already is. Introduced in War,
I mean, this is only
Flo
20
Pauling,
minutes.
Yes, we got her first name in the 7th comic, made her debut appearance alongside the Administrator as her right-hand assistant. Here, she's depicted as a little timid, particularly around the Administrator herself, as she seems intimidated by her harsh demeanor. For years, Miss Pauling was primarily a comic character, even for the ones that were used to promote game updates. She never really properly appeared in the game's real art style until 2014. To most, her real introduction was in Expiration Date, as she finally appeared as an in-game model with a voice provided by the prolific Ashley Birch. While she only appeared in the promotional material for the attached update, Love and War, Miss Pauling did finally make her in-game appearance with Gunmetal, where she was the one to give out the mercenary contracts, complete with voice lines and a main menu render. Throughout these iterations, Miss Pauling is depicted as a workaholic who's dedicated to doing her job. Miss Pauling does what she's told, whether that's bribing Red Demo Man to kill his best friend, or killing the director that the Administrator hired to film blackmail material of the Mercs. Miss Pauling's biggest shining trait is her loyalty to the Administrator, a trait that is challenged in the 7th comic. Let's take a look at the comic series as a whole. Now, when I say series, I'm primarily talking about TF Comics 1 through 7. The comics do take pre-existing lore into account, but I want to talk about Pauling's role in what was an ongoing storyline. Holy closure!
Again, and I love the ghosts. Just, if you know, you know.
If we were to boil the plot down to a summary, I think it's safe to say it would be something along the lines of, Grayman has won, Manco is no more, our beloved Mercs have been disbanded. Having gone into hiding, the Administrator tasks Miss Pauling with one last assignment. Get the team back together. One last job. Miss Pauling is the crux of the entire plot happening. Without her, the Mercs never would have gotten back together to defeat Gray. Sniper would have never found out he was basically Superman without the superpowers, and Soldier never would have impregnated Heavy's sister. 4 of the 7 comics were...
Oh yeah, that's a little thing. If you didn't know, at the end of the comic, well, not basically, the Heavy and Soldier are brothers-in-law.
...revolve around this plot. It isn't until the end of comic 4 that the 9 mercenaries are accounted for, regardless of if they're split from the group. Comics 4 through 7 are really the following arc. Pauling has sort of gotten everyone. Now it's time to find all that Australia, beat Gray, find out the Administrator's plot, yada yada.
Stop elder
Even
abuse.
past the initial get the band back together plot that was spearheaded by Pauling, her motives still continue. Motives that at their core continue to be loyal to the Administrator no matter what. Throughout this story,
it was the administrator's plan, and she's just making sure it happens.
this loyalty is challenged. She herself admits she doesn't actually know what the administrator's plan is, what her goal is. She's seemingly just blindingly loyal to her, and that's kind of a big mystery. Why is Pauling so loyal? While the 7th comic answered a lot of questions, it also left a lot unanswered or ambiguous, and Pauling's loyalty is one of them. One of the biggest theories was that Pauling had a blood relationship to the administrator, and I think there's a lot of evidence that could point towards it. Physical appearance, how Pauling sees her, etc. However, the 7th comic mostly debunks anything like a daughter theory, or even as absurd as a clone theory, which was also popular by the fans. The relationship between the two has always been shown as a boss and a subordinate. The administrator has never been an emotional person. Her first comic appearance showed her disgust at the idea of friendships, especially in the workplace. With all the context we have now, any perception that they were more than just a professional relationship was likely all in Pauling's head. Throughout the main comic series, we see a glimpse of what may be a slightly more caring administrator. During the meetup in Two Fort, after she snaps at Pauling, she shows a slight hint of sympathy, apologizes, giving Pauling a modicum of praise, but in hindsight, this was most likely nothing more than slight manipulation to keep Pauling on her good side. She's heartless and unsympathetic, but she's not an idiot. She knew she had to keep Pauling on her side. So, what's a little crumb of humanity shown towards her? The 7th comic reveals the administrator's true goal, and with it, her actual feeling towards Pauling. And Pauling's loyalty finally breaks. She sees what the administrator's big plan was. Nothing. Nothing but the misery of one man. There was no power grab, no grand scheme, nothing that would have her by the administrator's side.
Okay, so I will spoil this for anybody who hasn't read the comics, because honestly, after so many years, the fact... So it turns out the administrator had, Team Fortress happening and fighting and all that, purely just to have Zebediah Man, the father of the two, Blutarch and Redmond, the bosses of the two teams, Red and Blue, to fight so she could torture him into watching his sons fight endlessly forever, just to torture this dying old man. So if you've ever played TF2, every match you've played, either whether it's serious or you've gone into a friendly server or anything like that, every single one of those matches that has ever happened was televised directly into his head to torture him for years.
She finally sees that she means nothing to the administrator. The only thing that means anything to her is the eternal torture of Zephaniah Man. But for what? The comic doesn't spell it out in its writing, but it may show why on the very first page of the comic. Her parents may have been killed by Zephaniah Man or another man of the Man family. The reason we have 3 similar but distinct covers is to convey that she doesn't exactly remember how it happened. She says in the comic she can't remember what started it all, and that's what the comic covers are showing us.
Which, I mean, when you get down to it, that is a little bit of a cop-out, but at the same time, I mean, this isn't like Sword Art Online, where you have the developer of the game, I'm forgetting whatever his name was, say, oh, he can't remember why he decided to make a death game after, 2 years? But with this, she's been alive and doing this for literally hundreds of years. So I'm a bit more, even with the healing properties of Australium, I would be more likely to, I'd be less hesitant to believe that she'd actually, would have forgotten after all that time, or at least didn't remember all of the details.
Who knows which is which, if any of these events were the true event? What mattered to her was an event kicked off her unyielding hatred for Zephaniah Man when she was a child. But I'm getting sidetracked from the main topic. Despite how much I absolutely adore the Administrator, and that this comic just cemented her as my favorite character, this video isn't about her. It's about Miss Pauling. Miss Pauling was so consumed with her unexplained loyalty to the Administrator that I don't think she ever truly thought about her position with her, much less within the company itself. In Comic 6, it's revealed that our mercenaries, Team Fortress, are the Administrator's worst team at her disposal. And who was appointed to supervise them the entire time they were a team? Miss Pauling. Her job was to literally manage the bottom of the barrel mercenaries. They're so forgotten by the rest of the organization that the statue we see in the Administrator's hideout is straight up missing the F emblem, like it's been ripped off.
I mean, I like and hate that. Not because, they were forgotten, but I do like the fact that, you have a team A, B, C, D, and then, their names were actually related to their letter. So Team F was Team Fortress, and they're just, F grade, apparently.
While we don't know the full reason for this, it could be that Gray fired them. Who knows? What matters is that they're viewed as so worthless that the company erased them from memorabilia. Team Fortress was probably her last choice to execute her plan. But Gray and the classic team took the rest of them out. She had no other options. So she put the rest of her faith into Team Fortress and therefore Miss Pauling, who has this grandeur idea that she was special. Being in charge of the literal F team does not mean you're high on the corporate totem pole.
Yeah.
In what is presumably TF Industries headquarters, or at the very least a hideout. Wait, I should probably quickly explain the background on this for anyone who isn't aware of the company ties here. The Administrator is the head of TF Industries, which Red and Blue are actually subsidiaries of. Cool? Make sense? Alright, moving on. Anyhow, within this building, we can see two very noticeable things. The first is straight up told to us through dialogue. The receptionist doesn't know who Pauling and the team are. For someone that thinks they're important to the head of the company, the receptionist should probably recognize you, right?
Yeah.
But within the artwork, we can see countless employees all donning that iconic shade of purple. And one thing becomes clear. Miss Pauling is just wearing a uniform. She's just another cog in the corporate machine that keeps the Administrator's sadistic plans going. Yet another pawn to the Queen. The detail that stuck out to me that something was wrong with their perceived relationship was when Pauling found out the soldier accidentally had a stash of Australium. I'll get a promotion! I'll be second in command. I think a lot of people, including myself, thought
she was already
somewhere along those lines job-wise already. She seemed to spend a lot of time with the Administrator. At the very least, she was like her top assistant, right? But no, we don't quite know what exactly her job title or position on the corporate hierarchy was.
See, with that realization, I almost thought that, she wasn't second in command. She was quite literally the Administrator's, assistant. Not directly below her, but just sort of the help, so to speak. That's why, she's doing all the paperwork and, stuff like that.
But with that line, we know it's much lower than we initially thought. Pauling thought the Australian would get her the respect she wanted from her boss, the woman she dedicated her life to. But nope. Everything's just a big old nope towards everything Pauling believed and trusted.
Yep.
When she sees the Administrator for who she truly is, what her real plan is, she lies. She says she didn't find anything and lets the Administrator die. What remained of Zephaniah follows suit, as they both have finally run out of borrowed time.
And literally
The
disintegrated
administrator's
to
dead.
dust.
Her cycle of torture, both towards Zephaniah and herself, is finally over. Now the pieces are in Pauling's hands. She has the choice to continue the cycle, put into motion what she thought the administrator's grand plan was. In a very nice scene between Pauling and Engie, he gives her advice and presents her with her choices. Keep the ball moving, or end it. This sadistic plot was continued on by the incredible element of Australia, allowing it to continue happening well past its natural expiration date. While she wouldn't be enacting the same plot, she would have the ability to take this miracle gravel for herself and impose her own desires on the world. But she doesn't. She's clearly tired. Her lifelong loyalty was just shattered.
Just completely ran out.
She finally has a chance to do things her own way. So she takes up Engie's offer, declines the Australium, and they dump it into the ocean trench in the hopes that no one ever finds this godforsaken metal ever again.
I mean, granted, ironically, you should probably send it to Australia, and maybe, given that their entire civilization is based around it, that it making them strong and super intelligent and stuff, maybe you should find some way to just aerosolize it and just implant it into their DNA so that the effects just never go away.
The entire lore of TF2 was built around family and legacy. In the administrator's backstory, Zephaniah goes on about the Mann family's murderous legacy for one man to always come out on top and beat his brothers. The entire story of TF2, the game, ended up becoming about two warring brothers in an endless, pointless war. It's absurdly poetic that this grand scheme the administrator had been cooking up for over a century had the same sentiment. It was pointless anger. Nothing mattered. Even Olivia, Gray's daughter, whose mother we still don't know, was a product of this incessant bickering between the Mann family. In the time skip, we see that she's been fed up with being placed into her father's stupid plan, and doesn't want to be a part of it anymore. She wants to be free from the corporate shenanigans. She wants to live her life. Olivia and Pauling represent change within the status quo. While Pauling doesn't seem to have any family ties to the administrator, or the Manns, she's clawed her way through to a place of importance, kind of like how the administrator did. She got to where she was because of her work, but Olivia got to where she was because of her birth status. Olivia wants freedom from her name, but Pauling wanted to make a name for herself, and I believe in the end, she did. Half of the 7th comic takes place within a 7-year time skip, after the end of the war with Gray and the administrator, in the most cathartic piece of TF2 media that has ever existed.
Which, okay, so I don't know whether she goes into it, but basically the lore and joke is that earlier in the series, the Scout basically died, or was close to death, and, when he saw the light, he saw God, and God basically told the Scout that God put Scout on Earth as his gift to women. Now, you can obviously just say that as being, the near-death hallucinations of poor Jeremy there, but it turns out that after the 7-year time skip, it turns out that Scout has become a single dad with, I think it was like 5 kids, all from different women, where the women just seemingly just picked up their stuff and left, and he's just now the single dad with a bunch of kids. I love that thought. And also it's official that the spy is now a grandfather, because he is in fact Scout's father. Just the Scout doesn't know it.
We see the Mercs gathering for a Smithmas party. All the Mercs are there and their extended family, but Pauling is not.
Yeah, I did hear that. Scout's mom is not dead. She just, again, Scout's mom had 14 kids, so I guess she has to go on like a rotational cycle to see all her kids on Christmas.
She simply sends them a mega turkey from Bonk Farms. Huh. Maybe that's where Medic sourced his mega baboons from. Point being, is Pauling is a known workaholic. She does not stop working. So the question remains, where is she working? It's not explicitly said, but I think she became the head of TF Industries. When Engie said, "It's yours," I don't think he was talking about just the Australium. TF Industries was left without a boss. Pauling may not have been super high on the hierarchy in paper, but she definitely had the clout to take some control. She knew the inner workings of the business, and she had a damn good argument to be promoted. I think the administrator was holding her back. Miss Pauling is multifaceted, extremely capable. She can murder, handle contracts, shipments, and manage some of the craziest people alive. To top it off, she had a decade's worth of experience in everything I just mentioned. She would be the best option to take over a company that was now leaderless. She opted out of the Australium, but she would not opt out of the promotion of a lifetime. In the end, Miss Pauling ended up becoming the unsuspected protagonist of TF2's long-winded storyline. Despite starting as such a small side character, she became one of the most important characters in this absurd and loved world. Her actions changed the course of a long, drawn-out conflict that didn't mean jack diddly squat. In a sense, we saw the journey through her eyes. Getting the team back together was a hopeful outlook, and we read in glory seeing the mercenaries reuniting and getting more interactions between them. But as the story continues on, stuff gets more serious, and we definitely have a much more serious tone presented within the last two comics when compared with the earlier ones. Shit has entirely hit the fan. Pauling is losing hope because failure is imminent. As absurd as the entire situation everyone finds themselves in, there's a lot more tonally serious moments sprinkled throughout the last two comics, particularly the final one. The montage of the administrator losing her will to live after Zephaniah dies is done wonderfully. No words needed. The pictures tell the whole story. Her speeches to Zephaniah are so filled with vile hatred that only this woman, whose life mission it was to make this single man suffer, is chillingly good with none of that classic TF2 humor strewn in. The comic gives itself time to stop and take a breather in the form of the break room scene, a time for both readers and Pauling to
just
decompress
absorb
and
what
process
happened.
everything that's happened. While I do personally find flaws with the overall execution, and especially the lore stuff gets really muddy, though most does seem to be intentional, the core of the ending is very, very well done. We get Pauling and the administrator's conclusion. And then they hit us with the Mercs' happy ending, where they blatantly, directly thank the fans for staying along with them through the 17-year-long ride.
Yeah.
While the ending leaves itself open for interpretation, I, for one, am satisfied with the closure that Comic 7 brought. This story, lore-wise, does not need to move forward in the timeline. Stop here. This was an incredible ending to these characters. So sit down, have a leg off a Mega Turkey, maybe grab a sandwich
Mega
or two,
Turkey.
and reflect on the time we've all had with this game, these characters, and this world. Something doesn't always have to live forever.
Yeah, as I've said, God, how long have I played TF2 for? So I have almost 1,500 hours in the game. But when did I? Yeah, right there. You know, the story behind how I got TF2 and how I accidentally took it from my brother. Aside, I've had TF2 since 2010. And of course, I've had so much fun playing it and stuff like that. And I hope to have a lot more, but the fact that we finally, after all these years, have some sort of closure on the actual story of the game. Like, I mean, I hope the game doesn't die. Like, yeah, there are problems with how it is right now, but you know, I have fun. Like, I'll log in probably maybe like once a month, play for an hour or something, and just, you know, enjoy myself, have fun. I've been having a lot of fun recently with another YouTuber, a TF2 YouTuber called Uncle Dane. He does like a lot of like content around the engineer, and he hosts his own servers. And he started doing his own custom servers called Thousand Uncles, where you play versus a team of hyped up engineer bots. And it can be really fun, just like trying to like slog your way through this sea of sentries. You know, I'm well aware that TF2 will end one day. One of the servers will close down. Whether that's, you know, within like 2 years or 10, I have no idea. But that will be a sad day for certain. But until that day, I'm going to continue playing and enjoying Team Fortress 2. Oh, God. So, yeah, that's going to be it for now. So, yeah, of course, as always, original videos linked in the description if you haven't seen it yet for some reason. Corner video linked to my Let's Play of the day. And, yeah, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.